Welcome back, everyone. Here in the West, many people who have observed Islam and the political left for more than about 2.5 seconds have been able to detect a paradox. Namely, Islam is aligned with the political left in very substantial ways. A stereotypical example of this would be certain nauseatingly repugnant politicians who manage to mix leftist activism and Islam into a single festering, putrid blend of moral decay and ideological rot, all while wielding power and influence, and of course playing the victim. But the paradox is apparent. The mismatched marriage cannot possibly last. There are too many glaring conflicts between the religion of Islam and the religion of leftism. At some point, it seems inevitable that these conflicts will result in a head on collision. Allow me to illustrate with this extraordinarily sophisticated graphic. At this point, the Islam and political left trains are on parallel tracks. They're united, part of the same power-seeking coalition. They're so close they can take selfies together and post them on Insta. They can make a TikTok. But, and this is where at least 2.5 seconds of observation is important, it's clear that eventually the tracks diverge, though they will meet back up again, this time on a head-on collision course. But for now, we're mostly on the parallel tracks section of that illustration. Most conflicts, then, can simply be ignored. As an example of such a conflict, think about the Islamic slave trade. Slavery and racism, as we all know, are among the most frequent talking points of the political left. But what about the millions taken in the Islamic slave trade? What about Mecca being a major slavery hub through the middle of the 20th century? What about the continued slavery that occurs even today in Muslim lands? What about the racism inherent in the Islamic slave trade and throughout Muslim sources? Will the political left criticize that? No, they won't. Slavery and racism aren't big enough issues to divide the religions of leftism and Islam. It turns out that the left doesn't care that much about the issues, but they do want to use their rhetoric to advance their goals, which are shared with Islamic ideology insofar as they both want to destroy Western culture as we know it. So these issues can be overlooked in an effort to maintain the Islamic leftist coalition. It's not primarily ideological inconsistencies between these groups that's the problem. As we've seen, even glaring contradictions can be overlooked. The problem manifests at the level of the coalition when the political left has to choose between one group in the coalition and another. And when it comes to LGBTQ issues, the left will not side with Islam, or vice versa. We've seen his scholarly work on this channel before, but in this article, Ayman Ibrahim addresses Islam's clash with LGBTQ issues at the popular level. The inevitable clash between Islam and the LGBTQ agenda in the United States is now happening before our eyes, and Christians need to take a closer look. Now, unfortunately, Professor Ibrahim is not using the latest and greatest string of letters. It's actually the
LGBTQL.
LGBT.
QLI.
Okay, so anyway, take your pick. You can have LGBTQ, you can have LGBTQI+, you can have LGBTQ2SIA+. I'm not sure what all of those letters mean, but given the way activist and leftist politicians, though I repeat myself, conduct themselves, I am certain that the I stands for imperialism. With that qualification, back to the article. Last month, a crowd of hundreds of Muslims gathered in Dearborn, Michigan to demonstrate against LGBTQ books circulated and taught in public schools. Muslims began their protest with performing the ritual Islamic prayer, reading a chapter of the Quran, then marched holding signs of protest, denouncing the books used with their children as too explicit. "Stop brainwashing our children," one sign declared. "Quit grooming students, you sexually perverted animals," another sign demanded. This doesn't sound like a very inclusive group. A protesting woman wearing an Islamic hijab held a pride flag marked with a clear X sign in red and a statement, "Keep your twisted mindset to yourself." When a transgender counter-protester interfered in the demonstration, many Muslims shouted, "Go cry." The demonstration attracted large numbers of Muslims and a few non-Muslims and moved from Dearborn to the neighboring city of Hamtramck. These two cities are both very important to Muslims. Dearborn has the largest Muslim population per capita in the United States, while Hamtramck is now the first U.S. city with an all-Muslim government. In Hamtramck last month, anti-gay graffiti was drawn outside the city hall, and elected Muslim officials, including the Muslim mayor, opposed the flying of a pride flag this summer. This Muslim demonstration shows the unavoidable clash between Islam and the LGBTQ agenda. While liberals in the West have been keen to elevate Islam as an alternative to Christianity in matters of cultural progressiveness, moments like these clearly reflect the naivety common among Western liberals when it comes to comprehending Islam and its core values. This next paragraph may be difficult for those who want to maintain the leftist Islam coalition, but here we go anyway. Islamic authoritative texts clearly denounce homosexuality. In all of Islam's 5 classical schools of thought, homosexuality is unanimously forbidden and is, according to Islamic law, punishable by death. This is not surprising, as there are many Quranic verses that condemn homosexuality as the detestable sin of the people of Lot. And it's not just the Quran as the highest authoritative Islamic text that advances the same judgment, but also Muhammad's own statements. He reportedly instructed his followers, "Whoever you find doing the action of the people of Lot, kill the one who does it, and the one to whom it is done." But a severe conflict within the Muslim community is now growing in the West. Some progressive Muslims, in an attempt to present a version of Islam that appeals to Western liberalism, insist that Islam does not condemn the LGBTQ lifestyle. These progressives flourish mainly in the West, as they are not truly welcome in the heartland of Islam, nor in the Muslim-majority countries where Islamic sacred texts are taken seriously. They articulate an Islam that decidedly goes along the same wavelength as the dictates of the progressive agenda. When you hear of Western LGBTQ-friendly mosques and openly gay imams, understand that these are liberal Muslims who must reinterpret, historicize, or totally ignore their own Islamic sources in order to advance and support LGBTQ rhetoric. But the Dearborn Muslim protests present bad news for liberals in the West. Most American Muslims are concerned for their children and do not want them to be indoctrinated by un-Islamic LGBTQ material in public schools. Devoted Muslims want to adhere to religious commands. They do not buy into a westernized version of Islam that violates their scriptures or disobeys their prophet. The bad news for liberals is that Islam, as a world religion, will not serve as a cosmopolitan alternative to biblical Christian beliefs. Islam will hardly adopt, let alone carry and advance, their liberal agenda, especially on issues of sexuality. Indeed, the Muslim condemnation of all homosexual behavior is inconvenient to Western liberals, as this is not the Islam they have sought to emphasize. The clash between the two worldviews cannot be hidden any longer. Look to Dearborn and Hamtramck as signs of the coming conflict. When it comes to deciding what groups are in the intersectional coalition of the political left, you can be sure Islam will ultimately be excluded. But until that final train wreck, these groups will continue to use each other to try to get ahead. They'll continue working toward their common goal of the destruction of Western civilization, and of course the simultaneous pursuit of ultimate victimhood. And when they finally do clash, one of these victim groups will paradoxically emerge as victorious victims. Watching all of this play out is so stupid and pathetic. It's even a bit discouraging, isn't it? On the other hand, some Christians watching may be thinking, what this world truly needs is some good news. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time.